Hello everybody, Dafter Things here. In this video we're going to be looking at a product called Filmstro, which is available on desktop for Windows 10 and Mac OS. So this is Filmstro, but what is it and what can you do with it? So at a basic level, it's a library of hundreds of good quality, royalty-free music that you can use in your YouTube video, even if the video is monetized. So over here on the left hand side, the tracks are split down into collections. So you can download Filmstro for free, and when you do that, they provide some sample music listed here in demo that you can use to play around. Filmstro frequently release new tracks, so they're in the new track collection. There is one called Playlists, but I have no idea where these come from, no idea who created them. But it would be nice if I could create my own playlists. At the moment, I can't find a way of doing that. There's a featured section, and then at the bottom, perhaps more useful, the tracks are split by mood, adventurous, let's have a look at how many in there, lots in there, aggressive or carefree, cheeky, lots in cheeky as well. They're also split by film and video genre, action and conflict, lots in there, comedy, fairy tale, art film and chick flick. So again, lots of tracks, the tracks split down by film and video genre, and they do the same with musical genre and also by instrument type. So that's a lot of tracks that Filmstro provides, and it might be difficult to find the one you want, but Filmstro have helped by tagging each of the tracks. So if I search, for example, for battle, it will present me a list of tracks that might match a battle theme. It would be nice if I could add my custom tags to these tracks so I could find them easier in future. That's not available yet either. And one other thing, before you listen to a track you have to download it. So this one with the play button I have downloaded, this one I haven't. If you're going through dozens of tracks to try and find the one you want, having to download it before you even listen to it is a real pain. It would be nice if there was a preview option so you could have a listen before you even decide to download it. But still, lots and lots of good quality royalty-free tracks. But that's not the real power of Filmstro. If we look down here in the bottom left, we have three sliders: momentum, depth and power. And by changing these, you can change how each of those tracks sounds. So momentum will change the pace of the track, change the energy of the track. It doesn't affect the tempo, that remains the same, but it introduces quicker or more driving instruments. If you increase depth, it will add deeper, more bass tones and instruments. And finally, if you increase power, it changes or it adds moments of impact or introduces emotional elements. So let's have a listen to that in action. So in my favorites, I've got a track called Olympus. So if I play that, it starts playing and it has some default settings that it comes in with, and it sounds pretty good. Let's turn all of those sliders down to the minimum level, and we'll just increase them one at a time. So momentum changes the pace and energy of the track. You should be able to hear some strings being brought in. So let's turn that back down. Depth for those deeper tones. And finally, power for those moments of impact. And as we get higher up, even brings in some choral elements. So with them all turned down, I still quite like the track and I still might find a use for it. If I turn them all the way up, same track, sounding completely different. And of course, there's all of the combinations of these sliders. So we have a massive variety of sounds for this one track and hundreds of tracks to choose from. Let's turn everything up, because there's one other thing that's very clever and a bit subtle. So you should be able to hear those rapid drum beats. If I turn depth down, you can hear that those rapid drum beats are still there. If I turn momentum down, they disappear. So I'll put momentum back up. We have those rapid drums again. Turn power down, and the drums have disappeared again. So it's not momentum adding those drums, it's not power adding those drums, it's the combination of the two. As I say, very clever and very subtle. So we have lots and lots of tracks. We have the ability to create massive amounts of variations of those tracks, but Filmstro can do a little bit more, and it's this big section over here. So I'm going to create a Filmstro session. So I press create, import video, and I'm going to select Cold as Ice. So it's imported my video and it's created, and I have this timeline. Now the video is called Cold as Ice. It has an ice theme, so I want an ice or wintry type soundtrack to go with it. So I type ice, it gives me some suggestions. Let's listen to this first one. And that's definitely not what I'm after. So let's listen to the next one. Okay, that sounds familiar, but again is not what I'm after. So let's try this one. And this is very much the soundtrack that I think matches the theme of my video. So I am going to drag it onto this timeline, and I can now animate the changes that we would make on a slider to match my video. So the first thing I'm going to do, with soundtrack volume selected, I'm just going to turn that down around about 3/4, because I don't want it coming in over the top of my sound effects or any dialogue. And when I get to a certain point in my video, which is just as Wolverine has finished his sculpture and puts his claws away, I'm going to create a keyframe, create another keyframe, and then just bring it all the way down, effectively turning the music off. So now I want to add changes in power. And what I want to happen is I want power to gradually increase just before Wolverine starts to do his ice sculpture. So create my animation, rank it, put it up to around about halfway, and then in the video we fade to black. Now we fade to black because we want to show the passing of time, but I want the music to suggest that Wolverine is still hard at work. So to do that, I'm going to create another keyframe. Come on. And I'm going to put it all the way up. And I'm going to create yet another keyframe, and I'm going to leave it all the way up there until we get to the point where the soundtrack volume reduces, and I'm going to do the same with power. So we've keyframed power for this track over time. I'm going to do depth very quickly because I'm pretty much going to go into use the same pattern. So I'm just going to match those keyframes very roughly. Create another one as we fade to black. Create another one as he finishes his sculpture. And then a final one and bring it all the way down. Now I'm going to save this session. Because sometimes this section here gets a little bit laggy. So the last thing I want to do is add some momentum. Now in my video there is no momentum. Nothing really happens until Wolverine starts doing his sculpture. So I don't want momentum to come in until about here. Now I could just change to momentum and then do it via the same graph method, but there is another way of doing it. So if I just step back a bit, I can play my video and I can adjust momentum using the slider, and it will dynamically update those keyframes. So let's see if it will work. Press play, and I'm going to increase momentum. You notice the video has lagged, but I'm going to go all the way to the top, and then when we hit that same mark, I'm going to bring it all the way down again. Now that was a shame it did that. As I say, it does lag quite often. I want to show you exactly what the tool, the software does for me. It's possible because I've got quite an older machine, but I'll say save this again. I'll refresh and I'll see if that's got rid of the problem. So load my cold as ice. Okay, that seems to have got rid of the problem. So we have my title screen. Let's go a little bit further to where momentum changes. And you can hear those, again, strings coming in. The last thing I want to do, shouldn't have gone down there. I'll just adjust that one. And even though it was very quick and we had a few problems, I now have a track that changes over time to match what's going on in my video. The very last thing I want to do is I want to export it. So we can export everything, so video, soundtrack and all the audio. We can just export the audio, so that's the soundtrack, the sound effects and the dialogue. But I always take the soundtrack option. So let's call it COD. And it will start exporting just the soundtrack. Now the reason I do just the soundtrack is I can bring that in along with the video that it already matches and use it in my final edit, but still have some control over the volume of the soundtrack. So here we have the Filmstro website, and there is a lot you can do on here, but let's get the money bit out of the way first. So if I press view licenses, obviously to get that many tracks and all that function, it's going to cost you, and it's quite an investment. I go for this $99 a year so I can get the tracks and all the function as a YouTuber. But beyond the money, there's other things you can do here. You can download Filmstro for free, and with it you get those demo tracks that we saw in the demo category. And you can play around with the sliders. So if I press click to try it now, it gives you a number of tracks, and you can do what we did in the tool. But if I press explore library, it gives you a lot more options. It gives you nearly all, well, I'm guessing it's all of the tracks that come in the tool. And if I press this one, what, you can play around with the sliders. So you can do that for every track. So if I pause that, there's another thing you can do here. So you can download a static version of this track, 90 seconds worth of this track. So forget the sliders, they don't do anything here. If I press it, as you see, you get a free 90-second static track, which is YouTube cleared. So I've downloaded that track, and let's see what we get. So the download is a zip file format, and within that file you get an MP3 version of the track. You get a coupon for 20% off Filmstro, and you get the license. And that license says that you can use this track as part of a video soundtrack forever, anywhere in the world, for the following instances, which includes personal YouTube, including monetized videos. And that license is the same for every track you download, which is quite amazing. So that's Filmstro. Lots of good quality royalty-free tracks that you can make multiple variations of each of those tracks, and you can match them with your video using the timeline method. It's not perfect, we've seen there's some issues, there's some things I'd like to be introduced, but overall I like it. I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching. Ta-da!